is an example of a Google Lit trip. Or essentially, it's just using Google My Maps to add pins to maps and create sort of interactive information. So what I wanted to do was, I have this assignment in mind as a review activity in a geometry class following like a volume unit, area and volume unit, or for final review, both of which I think would work. So there's a little scenario here. So you've been called in by the Ministry of Historical Preservation in Egypt to do some measurements. So starting off at Giza, so there was this big sandstorm, and the ministry is really concerned. They want to make sure all of their monuments are still in pristine shape. So you're going to go about the country of Egypt and measure a bunch of old monuments. That's the plan. So in each tile, or in each gray tile, I guess, is a measurement assignment. So I've also included short video reminders for each topic. So, for example, we're at the pyramids here.
The following is a selected video from yourteacher.com, where you can browse over more.
Equals 1/3 and the volume of a pyramid.
So it's just to find the pyramid. So it gives students a little bit more context, just in case they've forgotten formulas or their general procedures. And there's also just information given, right? They can't really perform measurements in this applet, and so giving them base information off some measurements that I created will be necessary. So we start with the pyramids, we go to the Sphinx. In many of these sort of blue dot things, I've included just historical information. I mean, I have no idea exactly what all of my students' exposure to ancient history is. So giving people just a little bit of context and some outside links to just some curiosity information about each monument before they launch into their actual measurement activity, I think makes it more interactive, makes it a little bit more fun. So for the Sphinx, we have, the legend of the Sphinx's nose, and we are measuring half cylinders, essentially, and we're measuring one of the Sphinx's legs. Moving on, we go to the Pyramid of Djoser, with just some general information. It predates the Giza pyramids, and I think most students don't think of the Egyptians as creating step pyramids, which Djoser is. Their problem here is a little bit more involved. So they're finding the area or the volume of the pyramid using graduated areas and summing how many levels there are. So they actually have to use the photo to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 levels to Djoser. The students are welcome to zoom in, zoom out at any time, or just use the left navigation bar to travel. I typically leave it very zoomed in because I like looking at the actual monuments we're going to be measuring. So Luxor, we're just looking for use. I mean, a lot of these temples are devoid of context. Can be a little confusing. So I think it's interesting to say, these are the rituals they're performing. This is what they believed would happen. This is why they built it that way. Give them a little more context. The obelisk, we're just finding out how big it is. I have an additional article for, where they actually took the other Luxor obelisk, even though it's the same size as the one in Egypt. From there we go to Karnak, which is a pretty massive temple complex. So we simplified what they're actually going to measure. So in this case, they're only going to measure sort of this Ramses III temple. And it's just a It's a rectangular prism that they're finding the volume of. And there we go to Abu Simbel. I think this is actually my favorite extra link. It's just a fascinating story of how they actually moved the temples completely in order to preserve them from the flooding Nile. And then they're finding the area of the trapezoid behind the figures. And they're just given the dimensions overall. Anyway, I think there is a lot of potential, especially in geometry, for these sort of Google trips, especially with like ancient architecture sort of things, because you can have them figure out, or I guess look at maps of these monuments and then figure out how the ancient peoples built them. So I hope you enjoyed the concept, and hopefully we'll get to use this soon.